I don't know how much of this I want to remember, but it's necessary to say it all because I don't. If I don't want to forget any of this, then at least I have it. But I just don't have the energy right now or the strength to write it out, and I feel bad about that. But I'm exhausted. My body's had it, you know. But so Saturday night, no, Friday night, real late. I believe it was Friday night. We George and I stayed up the whole night Ubering until 4 in the morning. And I woke up around 11 a.m. and I put on my white skirt with tiny black stripes and this pinkish cami to go with it. And I was kind of picking up the apartment, and then I called mom, just, say good morning and stuff. And mom said that Sasha got back from the groomer and she was coughing really hard. Like her breathing was a little worse than normal. And we figured it was just from being at the groomer. And George encouraged me to go over there, I remember. So I went over there, and I was kind of crying, and so was Lisa. And I sat across from Sasha petting her, and she sat between the two chairs in the great room, which are against the back windows. And so in doing that, I just kind of petting her and stuff. She kind of got sick of me after a while. She got up, kind of would move every time I sat there to pet her. And then I left after about 2 hours. And, I kept telling her that I loved her. And then, so I left. And then I was with George going to his mom's shop. And then I was going to come back for dinner. And when I came back, um, right as I walked through the door, mom said, "Hey." So I went around the corner, and mom was telling me that Sasha had a seizure in the yard that lasted just a couple seconds. She was on her side doing her swimming thing, and then she started to feel like she was having a seizure. So mom ran out there and picked her up, and she was in the wet grass. Oh, you know what? I already did forget something. The first time I went over there, I walked Sasha. I asked her if she wanted to go on a walk, and she didn't bark, but she did jump right up and wanted to go. So we started off kind of fast. She always bursts through the front door, and she went really slow the whole rest of the walk. And when we were on our street, she picked up the pace like once or twice. She picked up the pace about once since we got off the street and turned right. And so I'm thinking she only picked up the pace twice. But anyway, I was as slow and patient with her as she wanted to be. And then it started to sprinkle, and then it started to rain. And then mom called to pick us up because we were getting wet. And when we were on the corner of like Ballymore and Lucerne crossing. And when mom picked us up, Sasha saw her and she tried to kind of skedaddle and go a little faster. She picked up the pace and she was walking low to the ground, which is her way of saying she didn't want to get in the car. I picked her up. She made a little sound, or maybe it was a little, I think it was more high pitched like that one than when I picked her up. So I was hoping that I didn't hurt her heart or make her heart uncomfortable because we knew that she had congestive heart failure. Um, at least I knew by this point. Well, we all knew by that point, but I don't think that was in the forefront of my mind either. But I know that I didn't want to make her feel out of breath by doing that. And I don't think she sat on my lap when we were in the car, just on the quick around the block drive back to our house. But anyway, that was the first time I was there. I left, and then when I came back, it's later for Pizza Hut around 6-ish. Well, in the 6 o'clock hour, which is September 5th. No, September 4th of 2022. Mom said that Sasha had a seizure. It was out in the yard, and because the grass is wet, like the wetness kind of helps her to snap out of it when you get your neck wet and stuff like that. So anyways, I sat with her some more and was petting her and crying and telling her I loved her, and I just hate that she kept seeing my face like that. But I was there for exactly 1 hour, and then I had to leave to help George with his stupid errands again. And then after that, I kept kind of saying she needs to go to the hospital. Lisa kept telling mom to tell me no, let's not take her to the hospital because um, in the she should be in the house where she's most comfortable. And I agree, but I also thought, just what if we are robbing her of her life by not taking her? What if it's an easy fix? Um, so that's kind of what was in the forefront of my mind. And so, anyways, um, going back and forth, and I called mom again around midnight, and we're on the phone for like 45 minutes, and we're just kind of going back and forth about how I think Sasha should go to the hospital. And she had invited me over before that, and I was kind of telling myself, like, oh, I really want to be there, but maybe she'll be fine and I don't have to worry about it. So I don't know what time it was, but it was after midnight. I know that. And mom said, oh, and I heard the door to the garage open, and I heard Sasha, nah, 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 nah. I knew she was having another seizure. I said, okay, I'm on my way. And George woke up and he was like, I'll take you. And I was shaking the entire car ride. And I get in to the house, and Sasha was calmly sitting down. She was in her right mind. She was coherent. She could see straight. She was fine. And I walked in, and her little head popped up when I walked in. And I'm so grateful for that. And I started petting her, and mom and Lisa said, oh, who's here for you? And so we're petting her, and then I kind of scooted back because I was on the phone with Jenny, because we're all debating at this point, do we take her to the hospital, do we put her down? We didn't know what to do. And so um Sasha, I'm she's laying between the two windows in the great room. She's facing the kitchen, and the car behind me is yelling, but anyway, um she's sitting there, and Jenny's on the phone. I have my phone sitting on the big gold poof, which is kind of like a footrest. And when I was talking to Jenny, Sasha slowly rose to her feet, and she walked over to me, and she looked up at me, and I just started petting her. And I don't think she sat down. She might have, but I was like, oh. And I was telling her I loved her. And I told Jenny that Sasha just walked up to me, and Jenny said, oh. And at first thought, I was like, maybe she's saying goodbye. And and she was. We found out later she was saying goodbye, but in the moment I was thinking, maybe it's not goodbye, maybe it is goodbye. But looking back, at first I was like just kind of devastated that I didn't take that moment in, and I was on the phone with Jenny. But I'm also thinking now, like, I'm kind of grateful that Jenny was on the phone, because Jenny was the first house that Sasha lived at. That's where Sasha was born. And we would never have had Sasha had it not been for Jenny. So I'm grateful that Jenny was somehow connected to that moment, because Jenny deserves it. And Jenny gave a wonderful life to Sasha's mom. And so we're just grateful for that. And, well, I'm grateful for that. And then, so she turned away from me to say goodbye to Lisa and mom, because Lisa and mom are kind of sitting to my right. They're facing the kitchen too, and she stopped between them, and they were both petting her. And I think I was petting her back, or her butt area. And then while she was facing them, I got up and got some scissors, and I cut a lock of her hair. She didn't freak out. And a few days beforehand, which I think was on Friday, I was on the phone with mom when I stopped in to let Sasha out. And when I did that, I didn't greet her, and I feel bad about that. and she was staring at me as I walked out, and I didn't say bye to her. That was a few days beforehand. But anyway, so I am going past the house that Sasha was born in, so I'm going to pause this for a second if I can. I don't know if I can. So, actually, you know what? I'm gonna actually just film it. 4331, and then I don't know what street name this is. So I'll see what street name it is. It is Oakhurst Drive, and this is Fort Wayne, Indiana, obviously. But anyways, so I know that she didn't freak out or anything when I cut that. I mean, of course, I didn't really touch her skin either. I didn't touch her skin when I had cut that fur off of her back, like the back of her neck. And then Lisa, well, we all sat with her and faced her. Like, I got face level with her as I was petting her while Mom and Lisa got around, and they did that with her while I got around. And we didn't take long getting around, of course. I wore my gray long sleeve shirt that says the word pink on it, and in that word pink, it's a bunch of different colors. And then I wore these thin, kind of droopy, blackish, grayish sweatpants, but they're mostly black. And then we left. Lisa was the one that picked her up, and we went to the vet. I said I would sit in the back. She sat on top of my lap. She had her little elbows on my knees. Well, not on my knees, on my thighs, and she didn't freak out that whole car ride. And I was petting her, and she had these gray spots on top of her head and on top of her back, which those are more noticeable after she goes to the groomer. But they just kind of stuck out to me a little bit, but I didn't think of them as anything to fear. And as we were driving, Mom and Lisa's talking and stuff, and I was petting the top of her, and I was saying, thank you for the past 11 years. I hope you make it. I love you. We all love you. We just love you. And I just kept saying that, and I kept thanking her for the 11 years, and I kept apologizing. I believe I apologized for not being there for her for the past 2 years. And so we get into the vet, and we walked her in. Like, I slowly sat her on the ground, and we walked her in by her leash. We walked her into the vet, and I don't know if I was the one holding her leash. I don't think I was, but I could have been. I don't remember. And then we get into the vet, and actually, I don't know if I handed her over. I think the nurse just picked her up. And when the nurse picked her up, she had wide eyes. But I kissed her before she went back. And I'm so grateful for that. But she was just a little scared. And then she was back in an oxygen tank the whole night. We just sat there terrified. Like, is she going to be put down? Is she not? Is there hope? Is there not? And we kept asking and asking. And finally, the nurse took a little video of Sasha, and she looked coherent and happy and like her normal self. And she was happy about the nurse opening the thing to pet her. And it looked like her tail even wagged when that happened. And then on top of that, the nurse kept saying that she wouldn't sleep. I kept asking, is she sleeping? And the nurse was like, no, she's looking around, being nosy, watching all the people, like all the nurses and doctors go by. And we laughed. And then I asked later on in the night if she was still doing that. And the nurse said yes. And then after 6 a.m., the doctor came in, told us that a cardiologist could see her. And so we were, um, hopeful. And I said, could we see her before that? And the nurse said yes. And the nurse's name was Ava, I believe. She had curly blonde hair, and she winged out her eyeliner. And she just seemed sweet, real skinny, sweet kid. And so anyway, um, sorry. Anyway, when she brought her in, it was just a little unexpected. Sasha's eyes were so glazed. She had already had a sedative by that point, and she was just panting. And she was kind of like sitting upright on the little tray table that they had in that room. And she's, and I said, "Is that normal for her tongue to be whitish, purplish?" And the nurse said, "Oh, no," and grabbed her and said, "She needs to go back on oxygen." So she kind of picked her up and took off. And then the nurse came back later after we had paid for everything. And the nurse said, well, she's like, "Do you guys have any more questions?" I said, "Is that normal?" The nurse said, "It's, not great, but she also doesn't have any medication in her." So we said, "Okay." We were going to pick up Sasha's medicine and return it then, or give it to them then. And so did that. And in doing that, we left, and we all three returned the medicine. And I'm glad that mom went, because I had that feeling that mom wasn't going to go back to return the medicine. And I almost, well, it's not that I didn't want to, but, it's just the fact that that option was there for me not to go. But I'm glad I did. And so anyway, hang on. So anyway, we did that. We returned the medicine, and then we left. We didn't see her when we returned the medicine. And then we left, and we went to, we were heading home, and we were almost home. We turned around in like that gray hawk or something, but because Lisa got a phone call and we knew it was bad, so Lisa started turning around, and by the things that Lisa was saying, we kind of knew that something was going on. They were performing CPR on her, and they basically said, "Turn around and come back because she's going downhill fast." And what was in her heart was coming out of her nose, or not what was in her heart, but what was in her lungs was coming out of her nose, which was clear liquid. Well, just fluid that was in her lungs, basically. But anyway, we knew that they were performing CPR. They tried to give her her medicine, and she got scared, and I think she nipped at him, and she wouldn't take the catheter in. So I don't know why, but anyway, we sped. I don't know what all she was. I don't know what all they tried. Well, okay, what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm thinking that that's kind of why she started to go downhill, is because she got scared of them trying to give the medicine. But anyway, so we sped back there. We went in the room, and they brought her in, and I just screamed, "My baby," because she was in this like dark yellow wool blanket, and she was laying on her side, and she was still breathing heavy, and her eyes were so big and so glossed over, and she had blood in her fur on her face, and I screamed, "My baby." And they said, "Do you want us to euthanize her so it goes faster?" And we said yes. The blood on her face was from the fluid that was coming out of her nose, because it was clear, and it was bloody, and that was all in her lungs. That was all in her lungs. And so they sat her on the table, and we all got in front of her face, and I don't know if she could see us, but we're saying we love her, and we're crying, making this face I'm making now. And I was like, we're all saying, "I love you, baby, I love you." And we all had our hands on her, and when we could still hear her breathing, and when he put the shot in her butt, she looked up at her butt, and then she laid her head back down, and or maybe they laid her head back down for her, and the nurse covered her mouth with a tissue, and then just blood came out of her nose. And so uh so that's what happened, and we wiped all the blood that we could off of her face and her nose. She had on her left paw, she had a little IV tape to her, and I asked for that, and they gave it to me. But for 20 minutes, she died around 7:15 a.m. on September 5th, 2022, which was Monday, Labor Day, and so we just laid around her body and we kept telling her that we loved her. And I saw mom break down crying, and that was so hard to see. And her little tongue was blue, and I'll never forget how traumatizing it was to see her poor face like that. And she still felt the pain of that needle go in her, but at least the suffering stopped. And we kept petting her, and we asked for a lock of her hair. We asked for an ink uh, stamp of her paws and a clay one, and we're all three gonna get one. And we um we also just pet every part of her, and I held her paws, and they took a picture. At least I took a picture, and we just touched her nosy and rubbed her ears, rubbed her belly, rubbed her butt, held her paws, kissed her, and kept telling her how much we love her. And that's what happened. And that was everything. And mom kept saying she felt like Sasha was looking down at us. And I don't know if I felt that or not, but I did picture that. And I hope she knew we were there, and I think she did. And it breaks my heart that she was totally coherent while she was in that little oxygen tank. I didn't want her last hours to be there, but mom and Lisa agreed that it's best the way things worked out, the timing of it, because had we waited, she would have died at home had we not taken her. And we would have wondered what if it could have been helped. And if we would have waited till later to take her to the hospital, she would have been in the waiting room then, or not in the waiting room, but she would have been, like, we wouldn't have been with her when she died then while she was waiting on treatment in the back without us. So that's what happened. And I know she's in heaven because that night, I would say around the 10 p.m. hour, George, Oliva, and I went to O'Sullivan's bar, and I went into the bathroom, and I just felt this overwhelming peace. Like, I pictured her in there with me, and I just told her, I started talking to her as if she was there, and I told her that we loved her. I told her I was sorry that I was a shitty parent the last 2 years. I told her I had no idea that she was on her way out soon. I thanked her for the 11 years. I thanked her for saying goodbye, and I just told her that mom and Lisa loved her, and that I was going to honor her by writing a book about the things I wish I knew in my 20s and dedicating it to her. That I was going to get a tattoo with her little ashes in it. Not all her ashes, but just a few. And that's it. And I knew somehow that she was fine and she's in heaven. And I just need to be done with this video, but that's everything.